Good morning. This is Dr. Matt Springer here today to talk to you about what you can do with your Christmas tree that is wildlife friendly or fisheries friendly now that the holiday season is over. And I'll tell you what, there's several inquiring minds that want to know in the wildlife and fisheries world because many species can benefit based on what you do with your Christmas tree. And hopefully it won't just be put it on the curb and get rid of it. So let's start with some of the options that are out there. And there's several, but it really kind of depends on your situation. There's a couple of questions you can ask. What species may you want to help, whether that's wildlife or fisheries? How much time do you have to work with the Christmas tree? And there's a few things we're going to talk about that are a little more time consuming. There's some that really aren't that time consuming. And then lastly, there's the space as part of this, where if you live in town, maybe you don't have a whole lot of places you can put a Christmas tree outside to help wildlife. But if you're in the country or you have a larger area in your backyard, then there's a couple more places you can put it. So let's jump right into this here. And we're going to start with not really a wildlife fishery side, but an easier option that isn't putting your tree in the curb. And that's, you can reach out to a goat farmer or someone who has a goat or goats that, goats will consume these trees down to nothing. They love them. It's a great food source for them, as, many things are for goats, pretty much everything. But it's a simple way that your tree doesn't end up on the curb and gets recycled pretty quickly and turns to compost real quick. And, if you don't know a goat farmer, you might be able to reach out and find one through your county extension agent. They might be able to put you in touch with somebody that would take the tree. However, this is an option that exists and it's one that people talk about. So I want to make sure to mention it. The next option that doesn't really require a lot of time that we're going to go into a little bit of details here and why it's a good thing is actually donating your Christmas tree to Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources. And they have a whole bunch of different drop-off locations, and the program actually has a pretty good description here found at this link. And the only thing that they ask if you're going to donate your tree to them at one of these locations is that you make sure it's free of decorations or lights. Many of these locations are easily accessible. They're usually in parking lots of parks or at boat ramps. Somewhere that you can just pull right up with your vehicle, throw it right into the pile that exists in the designated area, and go ahead and drive off. So it doesn't require a whole lot of effort on your end outside of just getting the tree to that location. And here's an actual list of the locations for this year, broken down by the fisheries district that's going to use them. So if you want to contribute to a certain area that maybe you fish at, you could drive your tree all the way down to that area, find the closest one, and then they're going to use that here in the way I'm going to describe in a second. But this is basically a breakdown of the locations for this year and who you can contact if you have any questions. And this can be found at the website that was linked below. But as you can see, there's a bunch out there, several in our central district here, including Jacobson Park here in Lexington, and also in Scott County at the Scott County Park for the closer ones. But there's several out there. And what they're actually going to use these for is creating structure in the lake in areas that may be lacking structure. And why is structure good? Well, really it provides cover for game fish, for smaller minnows and fingerlings to escape those bigger game fish. And it can attract fish of all kinds, and it depends on where they're placed. Sometimes it's, they're in shallower flats and used in terms of cover for spawning or the fish that have just spawned. Sometimes it's in deeper water where they can access it in winter to get cover as they're trying to make it through the cooler months. But realistically, all they do is they're tying these together, fashioning them together and adding weight to them so they don't drift off. These things will last several years in that area. And what they will do then outside of that, the fisheries folks, is they take GPS points of where they drop the trees off so fishermen can get access to where they created these cover to hopefully catch some of those fish that are attracted to it. It's an easy way of helping out fisheries. And also, if you think about it, fish are food for many of our wildlife species, including otters, many of our bird species, our larger raptors, blue herons, and so on. So, it's not directly wildlife friendly, but it works up the food chain to help them out. The next option is to create more of a bird-friendly backyard. So if you have an area that you want to, in your backyard that you have enough space that you can put your Christmas tree out there, you can have a couple different things that you can do, from some that are not very time consuming to something that's more like pictured here that is a little bit more time consuming, but very wildlife friendly. So you can basically put these trees in your backyard, either standing them up. This one actually is more of a live tree that was decorated, but you can stand up your Christmas tree that you have along a fence or against another tree and decorate it here with bird food. You can use cookie cutters. You can make it a fun child friendly activity. I think we're going to hear a little bit more about that later on this show, so I don't want to go into it. But using bird food, fruits, hanging them on with yarn will attract birds and feed them. And also, the permanence of those of the evergreen that we have here is producing cover from predators with quick access to food. It's pretty hard for a hawk or a cat to get at a bird that's feeding in one of these trees. So it adds both thermal and protective cover for them with food access. And in terms of some of the things that you can do for food, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has this nice handy dandy poster of how you can decorate your Christmas tree. Some of these are pretty simple. Take pine cones, put some peanut butter and oats on them and hang them up in the tree, cutting up orange slices or apple slices, to creating very decorative strings of grapes or popcorn, which take a little bit more time, but add to the fun of it all. So this can be as time consuming and decorative as you want, but there are a lot of options that are out there. In addition, you can take a route of just putting a sunflower head that has seeds on it in there. That's a pretty simple, especially if you've grown sunflowers in your garden. Many species of birds will be all over the food that you're providing them there. Another simpler option instead of decorating them is you can literally just take that tree and lay it on its side near maybe where you have existing bird feeders or in areas that are lacking cover. You can pile up more brush around it or add it as a base to create a bigger wildlife habitat there. And think more of creating cover, escape cover for many species. Obviously, the birds are going to use it, but other things like rabbits and squirrels, mice, other small mammals, they're going to use that to escape predators and also act as ground cover and thermal cover from extreme weather events like snowstorm, rain. It's going to add a little more shelter for it. So that's a simple way of using it to provide wildlife cover. You can go that more advanced and decorate it and enjoy a lot more activity probably. However, just taking it, putting it out there in an area will provide wildlife benefit. Keep in mind that many of these species also break down pretty quickly, so that's going to create soil and break down and improve that area over time. So you can use it like a compost pile, or think of it as a compost pile if you want. There's a few more interesting options out there. The National Christmas Tree Foundation has a how to recycle webpage. Arbor Day also has one if you Google it. And there's that website for Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources. Again, you can also just go on their main page and do Christmas tree in their search engine, and it pops right up in the options. So hope everyone had a great holidays and a great start to 2021.